Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today is longtime listener, poet laureate, and Taya Master Anne-Marie Young. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. Anne-Marie, as I was thinking about what I was going to say to start off today's episode, the first thought that came to my mind, and I mentioned it to you guys before we got started, is we talk a lot about how you attract abundance in your life. How do you bring money into your life? Or how do you bring a relationship or better health or whatever it is that you're trying to attract? We don't often talk about what you do with it when it arrives.
That's such a good question.
Right?
Because it burns a hole in my pocket, that's for sure.
Most people, trust me.
I think it's actually, we were, again, chatting about this before we got going with our guest today, Suzanne Leydecker, who is certainly an expert on it because of her own personal experience, if for no other reason, not to mention her other credentials as well. But it's a challenge for a lot more people than we might realize. We're kind of in an age now where more and more people are not only learning how to attract abundance into their lives, but even if they don't know about law of attraction, law of abundance, and so forth, the abundance shows up anyway because they don't necessarily know how they got there, but they got there. And then what do they do with it? And actually, that's where a whole coaching industry kind of emerged, because there were a whole bunch of people either in business or in their own personal lives who had this explosion of stuff going on and they didn't know how to manage it. So I'm glad we're going to be talking about that today.
Yeah.
Emery, is that something you've had to deal with personally? I don't know what that side of your history. So, I mean, if you had to experience with, something coming in large amounts like that, you had to deal with it?
Not really. I did have a mindset of like, oh, there's always something to buy, or there's always something to spend your money on. And I've had to kind of twist that around. So, because obviously there's always going to be more stuff that I need to buy, or something else is going to go wrong that I need to replace.
Right.
So now I just tell myself I've got everything I need.
Good for you.
I like that. That's good. So let's bring our guest in and get some expertise on this. So Suzanne Leydecker, thank you for joining us. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Walt and Anne-Marie. How are you guys?
We're doing fabulous.
Very well.
Good. All in different parts of the world.
That's what's so fun about this. We get to connect all over the place. I mean, 30 years ago, that was unheard of. Now we're doing it regularly.
I agree.
I think it's exciting.
I do too.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So give us a little bit of your background. Tell us how you ended up being the author of A Woman on Top.
Well, I wasn't planning on it. I'm the only person that I know that managed to go all the way through college without taking an English course. I studied design and planning, and somehow I made it out of school with no English course. And I really pretty much did not attend or pay attention, I should say, in high school to English either. So I've got a head for numbers. I've got a design and planning degree, so I can tell you whether your rug is an inch too much to the left or to the right. But writing was not really my bag until I met a man, was going to marry him. And 5 years into the relationship, I realized that something wasn't right. He was extremely young, super hot, really. Broker than crap, a really good athlete. I tend to go with men that are great athletes. Financially, they're usually a mess. And up until the bitter end, I thought this was the man for me. And then I realized that I had a little bit of a problem on my hands. And I did not realize until I went to finish writing this book. It took me 11 years. That's, yes, a long time. But I wasn't prepared to finish it before then. I hadn't gotten there. I didn't realize what was going on. Anyway, so as he was slamming his way for the last time out my front door, I said, I am going to write a book called A Woman with Means. And he's like, you can't write a book about money. You know nothing about it. Oh, I had just inherited money 3 months before I met him. And I was like, I know everything about money. Well, he was right. And I was totally wrong because I didn't know anything. It's since morphed into the current title that it has, which is called A Woman on Top. And yes, if you Google Women on Top, you get a lot of women on top, and then you get me. It says right in the first paragraph of the prologue, so you thought you were reading a book about sex. But you're not. You're reading a book about love, money, relationships, and a little bit of sex.
Yeah, okay.
So
Little sex
somehow
doesn't hurt. That's often a good way to sell. So that's all right.
somehow, you guys, I managed to write a fantastic book with no book experience.
Fantastic.
I get messages on a daily basis that say, wow, I picked up your book and I couldn't put it down. I
Nice.
shared with you guys earlier that my whole life was, the intersection of love and money. If you did good, you got money. If you didn't get money. You had an allowance, you had to beg for it. Like there was all these things. And I think people get sucked into my book because it makes them reflect on how they grew up. Right. So I wasn't planning on writing a book, but now I'm not only writing a book, and I've done really well. I've sold 400 copies in 14 months, which is really good for a first-time author.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, most people don't sell more than 200 books in their lives.
Yeah.
Or the life of the book, whatever it is. And I just, reflecting upon what you said, I want to share my mission statement with you, which
Okay.
frankly just got refined this morning. Finally.
Hot off the press.
Through so many different renditions of it. But my mission statement is I help wealthy women recognize their self-worth without guilt or blame so they can fall in love with themselves again.
Definitely a book long past being about money.
Long past being about money. And you were referring to how do you keep it when you get it? I'm preparing to do a TED Talk, which is based on no matter how high your net worth goes, you will always default back to the level of your self-worth every single time. And I know that's true because I had no self-worth because I grew up in kind of an abusive family. I inherited the money and I still had no self-worth until I made some dynamic changes that I can share with you. So, I don't know if you're familiar with this fact, but 1 out of every 8, at least, people in the US play the lottery at least once per week.
Really? Is that many? I didn't know.
Because well, you can look up a lot of different statistics, but as far as I can tell, that's the most readily available and accurate. So they want to play the lottery. Well, I don't know, Anne-Marie, what would you do if you won the lottery?
Oh, I would probably buy a property, go on holiday and save.
Okay, well, you just told me you're not very good at saving.
Oh, I can save, but I'm also very good at spending.
So, sometimes people, I gave, for example, several of the boyfriends big checks because I wanted to equalize out there, but not that it was equal, but they just blew right through them. The money just through their fingers. I think because they didn't know what to do with it. They didn't have any training. They didn't understand. Well, what would you do with your money?
It depends on how much it was.
Let's say you cleared $10 million.
I would probably take about, after the taxes.
No, you get 10 million.
Oh, 10 mil clear?
We've already paid.
Oh, okay. Well, 10 mil clear, I'd probably take 10, 15% of it and just have some fun with it. And the rest I'd find ways to invest.
Right.
Probably a lot of it in real estate.
Yeah. So it's really funny because I have never asked a person this question that does not have a very specific answer. Right. The problem is that, I won the lottery. I got the money. The checks arrived in the mail. They were sent like regular mail. The first 2 got lost.
Oh, dear.
Okay. I was like, this is so queer. Didn't we have FedEx in 2007? I guess. Anyway, so there was 2 checks because one of them was supposed to be generation skipping, but it didn't work. So it was in 2 checks. Anyway, I get it. I put it in my bank account. I'm thinking, I'm good. I'm going to do something similar to what you're both talking about. Not going to blow it. Yeah. Good luck with that. I'm telling you that unless you have some immense training from somebody that comes before you, you're going to blow way more than 50% of it. Some people blow all of it.
I can see
Many,
that.
including my brother, $0. It's so funny because I'm saying this live. I hope my children don't mind, but I was just laying out or relooking at my wills and how I'm going to gift them money. And they're not going to be getting enough money to fly around in private planes, but they're getting some money. But I'm giving it to them in a third, pieces in a third. So unless I die when I'm 65, I mean 95, and they're already 65, then go for it. Have a good time. But if I died tomorrow, they would all get 1/3 their portion, and then they would get another third. They would have their portion, and then they would get a third of that portion. 5 years later, another third, and 5 years later, another third. Because I know from experience, and hopefully I'm a good coach to them, but they will think they're living on air, and you just, this is what you do. And then you have the problems, as many people have pointed out. You can also Google what happens to lottery winners. Mostly they lose the money within 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, that's common.
Let's say over $1 million they're getting. Who cares? $25, go out and blow it. I don't know. But they lose it. They don't know who their friends are anymore, especially big time lottery winners can't go to the grocery store. They're not able to leave their houses because everybody is coming after them for money. Their families break up, and I can't tell you the exact statistics, but a lot of them kill themselves. They can't take the pressure of getting that kind of money. So, whereas people think, I mean, there's lots of great things about inheriting money or winning the lottery. Many. Food, water, shelter, taken care of, if you can keep it. But then it's fraught with all kinds of emotional problems that creep in. God is not specific between whether you're rich and poor, whether he's going to give you a problem or make you sick or give you mental illness or a wide variety of things. God doesn't care. You're going to get sick if you get sick. If you don't take care of yourself, you're more than likely going to get sick. So it's been a very interesting journey over the last 18 years to see how I've evolved as a human being in order to be able to handle and present well what I have and feel comfortable with it.
What you're saying is interesting to me on a number of different levels, not the least of which is you're challenging me on the idea, well, would I actually invest, the 85 to 90% like I was talking about? And deep down, I think I probably would, but now you're making me wonder, would I? I'm not really 100% sure now, I think the reason I would do it is because I would invest in real estate. I'd be investing in real estate for the purpose of generating rental incomes.
Yes.
And, basically turning it into an ongoing income, because that kind of income, that a windfall is nice, but you can go through a windfall pretty easily. But for me, the trick is turn it into annual income. So if you have an annual income, now you got something you can work with.
Yeah. And by the way, Anne Marie, I was so not picking on you before. It sounded like I was, but I wasn't. No. Yeah, but you just told me you weren't good at saving. That is, we're talking about the law of attraction, right? That is the name of this podcast. So you'd be surprised about how many things we tell ourselves all the time. Like I'm not good with spending. I spend too much, or whatever those little thoughts are in the back of our mind that we don't even know we're saying. Really, yeah, I just heard it because, I'm here listening. But it's pretty funny. Like, if you really want to attract the law of abundance, yes, you need to know how to embrace receiving it, whether it's money, relationship. So many lonely people on the planet, particularly women who have done quite well in business. They're quite successful. And they can't find anybody to save their lives to date. Equally as hard of a problem, you can be money rich and relationship poor.
Oh, it's very common. Yeah.
Very common on the planet today. And as
one of my other co-hosts, Joel Elston, is a life coach, and very frequently coaches people who have huge amounts of money. And he has commented to me more often privately than on the show, just incredible how many of them have horrible relationship issues, absolutely horrible relationship issues, because they never learned that part. They learned the money part. They figured that part out. They never learned the relationship part.
Well, I think that it's also stems from if you get money or you have money, you think you don't have to deal with the problems of self-worth.
Yeah.
So it's just like you don't have those problems. Those are for poor people. And what happens a lot, which certainly happened for me, is I had a very low sense of self-esteem. And honestly, I had three very specific things that I chose to do differently in my life that led me from where I was for the first 60 years of my life to the last 5, where my self-worth has skyrocketed and I feel good about myself and I'm a kind, loving person. And I'd be happy to share those pillars with you if you'd like to hear them.
Absolutely. And by the way, congratulations on that growth. That's really fabulous.
Thank you. Because most people, you know what, it's really hard to grow. I tried everything. I spent the first 60 years of my life. I got 2 graduate degrees. I practiced, free form writing. I meditated. I did everything. And I was like, when is something going to change? I was so lost.
Yeah.
Law of attraction. Yeah, get it. Done all those things. Nothing happened until I practiced 3 things, and then everything changed. And I'm just sharing these with you. These are my pillars of my business because they work for me. 1, take personal responsibility for your behavior, for your life. And for women out there on listening, that doesn't mean taking too much. My children had to create a prayer flag in my room after the last boyfriend. I dumped him, but then I was brokenhearted. It's not all your fault. I thought it was all my fault. Everything. I thought my whole life was everyone's problems were my fault all the time throughout my life. And I just started practicing saying it's not all my fault. It's just not. It can't be. It's impossible. The second one is, and my greatest pillar that I love so much, is say no if it's not a hell yeah. Like that is the litmus step. And listen, for example, I'll just take something out of my own life. I have somebody that I like who lives in northern Wisconsin, if he's listening, which he probably doesn't even know what a podcast is, but if you are, I'm talking about you, yes. Oh gosh, I forgot what I was saying. He lives in northern Wisconsin, like way up almost to the Canadian border. That is a hell no for me. I don't want to live in Canada. It's too cold. I live in Aspen, Colorado with some of the best skiing in the world. I live in Orlando, Florida. My business goes where I am. It takes a computer and, whatever. But because of that, it has to be a hell no. I was just talking to a client today and he said the same thing. He's like, well, I'm trying to get my girlfriend to move here. And for her, it's just not a hell yes. So I was like, you got to say bye.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to live your life in misery. So that was an expression that was invented by Derek Silvers, who said it the first time on the Tim Ferriss podcast. And Tim, if you're listening, I'm still looking for you. We met the other day and I'm like, when is he going to get a hold of me? Anyway, and the third one is really, and especially true for women as well, because we're such caretakers, is not taking things personally. And that's true for all of us, but it's and this is a really hard one because it's not like nobody's ever going to say anything to you that doesn't, stick the knife in and kind of twist it a little bit, because they will. It's part of life. It's part of the human condition. But it's what you do post them gouging you in the stomach. Like, what are you going to do with that? My response time around that and my upset time around that is within minutes now, where it used to be days, sometimes weeks. Oh my God, I can't believe that this person said that they thought that I was fat, whatever, or dumb. Here I am trying to tell listeners, hey, I got a way to help you out of some of your low self-worth issues. People can bash me all they want, say she doesn't know what she's talking about. And it's my job to say, I'm going to keep going with the things that I think are the best to serve the planet. That's
Good
what
for you.
yeah, which is not always easy, but
Nope. No. But you're tapping into some stuff that is quite prevalent. I had a conversation with my physical therapist recently, who I adore. I think she's like the best physical therapist on the planet. Now, I'm sure there are other great ones too, but because she's mine, she's the best. And we talk about all kinds of stuff while, she's working on in this case, my neck. Previously with my Achilles. But anyway, one of the things that she brought up, I can't remember exactly how it came up, but she picks up all kinds of stuff in conversation. And this one day she was bringing up something about education and the role of parents in education and the role of teachers. And I don't remember exactly what she said. But when she was done saying what she said, I said to her, I'm going to take a slightly different tack on this. She says, oh, okay. And so I gave my different tack on it. And after we talked about it for a bit, we had a really great conversation. After we talked about it for a bit, she said, I really appreciate the fact that you didn't make me feel dumb. I said, well, you're not dumb. You're very intelligent. But her comment stuck with me because I realized that's a very prevalent thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
People are so used to being, and it's especially women, are so used to being made to feel dumb, usually by men. On behalf of my gender, I apologize. But nevertheless, I mean, that's it's much more common than I had given credit for.
Yeah.
And when she said it to me, because I mean, this is a very bright woman. She is really, really amazing. She is so good at what she does. And when she said that, it was like the last thing I expected to hear from her. Yeah. And yet here she was saying it to me.
Can I ask you how old she is? Approximately.
I don't know exactly. I would say she's probably 40-ish, something like that.
Well, the reason why I asked, and I can't specifically speak to a 40-year-old, but in my generation, when I was growing up, I mean, my dad called me little girl. Oof. And then my brother continued on, as an adult, calling, I'm choosing not to be involved in that relationship anymore, calling me little girl. You don't know what I'm doing. Now, this is coming from someone I've made 4 times as much. So I don't know who the little girl is really in this scenario, but it's very common. And I think that, so we think that the younger generation, well, now my kids are like in their late 20s, early 30s, that they have it all figured out. I guarantee you they don't, because we didn't. Because we learned from our parents. Maybe a couple generations down the line, they'll have a little bit more, lack or more self-esteem. And not be, kind of under this thing that my parents taught me, which is, be seen and not heard.
Yeah, that was common with me too.
Of course, because we were born in that.
That was the generation we grew up in. Yeah.
Right. I mean, terrible things. It was really not a very good way of growing up. And then of course, there was good things too. And then we carried along. I thought I had to spank my children and put them in corners to tell them any good. I would never do that to my cute little grandson that was just born. I would give him love, discipline, and a little bit of groceries.
A little bit of groceries.
Make sure he, survives. That came from a friend's father who I thought was a brilliant man. He's like, all they need is love, discipline.
And a little bit of groceries. I like that. That's good.
Oh yeah, that was very, very stuck in my mind.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I can't really speak to a 40-year-old, but as women, I think in general, we feel, not all women, some women are really like together, especially if men or women in any generation have been raised by strong women who know what they want, who are authentically feminine and authentically empowered, then we usually, those kids usually have it pretty figured out. I've noticed in my own research.
Okay.
If you have a strong mother, you tend to, as a male, attract strong females, which
that makes sense.
Family, yeah, because that's what you're familiar with. And I don't mean strong in like tyrants. I mean, strong as in loving, kind, successful,
Self-confident.
yeah, financially well-off women who, I mean, we have some role models like Eleanor Roosevelt.
Oh, fabulous. Yeah.
There's a few. Jane Fonda's really, I just listened to something from her. She's really stepping up her game and, really contributing back to society after post being a famous person.
Right.
Still is a famous person, but, she's really giving her love back. I mean, there's so many, there are women, but they're not extremely prevalent. They are now getting to be.
Well, that's the beauty of it. I mean, I don't really share the sentiment that many people have about the modern young generations, because I personally believe that every new generation is more advanced, more developed, healthier than the previous generation.
Yeah.
It may be only incrementally true, but it is true, I believe. And so that's what I see as I look at, like the millennials or Gen Z or whatever comes after Gen Z. I hear it's Gen Alpha. I'm not quite
Gen
sure.
Alpha, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, it's so funny because I have the same idea that millennials are being bashed, especially by my generation.
Oh, yeah, it's crazy.
Lazy. They don't do any work. They just want to get paid for doing nothing. Well, of course, they're brilliant. They want to get paid for doing nothing. Like, that's the ultimate thing, right? They want to figure out how to do less to make more. How smart is that?
And not only that, they actually want to be appreciated when they're on the job. And if they aren't appreciated on the job, they're willing to walk out the door. That was unheard of in our generation.
Beautiful.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that true in the UK as well? That millennials are looked down upon? And
I wouldn't say so. No, not that I've noticed anyway. Not in my environment.
Oh, you would notice if it was like in the US.
Oh, yeah, you definitely would notice. Yeah.
It's not something that I've seen. I think obviously there's the differences in every generation, and I'm Gen X. I've got 2 Gen Alpha girls, and I look at them and I'm like, holy crap! I wish I was like you.
How old is a Gen Alpha girl?
So I've got a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old.
Okay. Gen Alpha. I learn something new every day. Yeah, well, I produced 3 millennials, and I think actually one of them might be bordering on Gen Z, but they are wonderful human beings. They're very committed to what they want to do. They're not lazy by any stretch of the imagination. They're just trying to do something differently, which is what they're supposed to be doing. As you said, Walt, I mean, we're trying to get smarter and better. It's just that.
And they do. They are smarter and better. And that's a good thing.
They are.
I'll tell you honestly, Suzanne, I think that those in our generation who criticize them are really criticizing because they're afraid that they really are smarter.
They are. I agree. Right. But you know what? You realize that, I don't know about in your world, but in my world, I mean, baby boomers are putting down millennials. And I constantly stand up for them. But it's everywhere I go. Oh, they're so lazy. They can barely get them to work. Nobody's taking up the jobs. Well, nobody's taking up the jobs because we got the most messed up economy of all times, right? And I think that there's so many more factors that go into. I mean, I would love to, like, all those people that are unemployed and all those signs that say, "Hey, I've got a job for you." Well, like, why can't we match that? But I don't know.
I have to admit that I am not somebody who has lots of friends who behave like that about millennials, because I tend to lose them as friends really quickly.
Oh.
And the way I tend to lose them as friends is by laughing in their faces.
All right. So rather than me trying to give some soapbox speech about how we should embrace them, I should just laugh.
Well, it depends on whether or not you want them in your circle. I personally don't want somebody like that in my circle. I want them out of my circle as fast as possible.
Fine. I'm going to start laughing.
Yeah, it's very effective.
When you just laugh at somebody.
When you just laugh at, because what are they going to say? You know,
the other thing is that I'm just making this shit up, right? Sorry. The
that's
audience.
all right.
That if you laugh at them, you know what's probably happening on the inside for them?
Oh,
is
they're crumbling.
they don't feel good enough.
Yeah.
You're calling them out and you're saying you're
Calling
not.
them out. Absolutely. Oh yeah. And nobody likes that's being uncovered. Nobody likes to be uncovered.
No. I mean, I'd like to approach life in a way that would not be uncovering to someone where they feel like, they're naked and they have to put on something to protect themselves.
Yeah.
I believe in, bringing I'm sure you guys do too. Look what you do, bringing everyone up into their fullest
Sure.
extent of who they can be. And some people are going to get there and some people just aren't quite ready. Those people.
I save my laughter for the people who give me the hard pushback. The
Okay.
harder they push back, the more I laugh, which pisses them off to no end. But it also keeps them at arm's length, which is exactly where I want them. I don't want them anywhere near me.
Right. So tell me your 10 or top 3 tips for law of attraction.
Feel good. That's number 1.
Feel good.
As often as you can. That's probably part of number 1, but I could also make that number 2, because the tendency is to, okay, I'm going to feel good right now. Okay, I felt good for 5 minutes. I'm done, and that's not good enough. You got to be working to feel good, or at least feel good. Probably isn't the right thing. It's feel better. If you can always aim to feel better than where you're at, because there are going to be times where you're going to fall down into the worst possible situation, and then it's the same goal. It's just feel better. What can you do to feel better? What can you do to get yourself into a better feeling place? So that's always my top goal. What can I do to feel better than I am feeling right now? No matter where that is, high, low, medium, makes no difference.
It's interesting that you say that. So what I find for myself personally, and for the people that I work with and people that I talk with, because I'm always talking to someone, is that it's like, sometimes it's very comfortable. You're feeling good. Everything's going great. Day is happy. And then somebody says to you really gets under your skin.
Oh yeah.
So my coaching skills and what I'm trying to get at through my book and through what I'm trying to, spread across the planet is that in those times when you all of a sudden don't feel good, how can you pick yourself up by your bootstrap and be okay with what's going on?
Exactly.
Because that's when we're going to make the change.
It's also when we're going to do the biggest growth.
Exactly. That's going to create the biggest growth. So it's when you feel stuck, or you feel alone, or you feel lost, or you feel unloved or stupid or whatever, is the time to not spiral down into the toilet, but to say, I'm okay. I'm loving. And this really does work. I know it does because I do it.
Yeah, I agree totally. And I actually had a day like that on Saturday. Saturday was one of those days where no matter what you do, you just feel miserable. You know, that kind where you just get yourself into a funk, and you can tell you're in that funk, and by tomorrow it's going to be gone, but you feel it right then.
Give me an example. What happened on Saturday?
My mind just went overboard on negatives. There was no particular event that happened on Saturday that was a bad event.
Something happened, probably.
I'm not sure I could even point to anything.
Maybe you didn't sleep well, or it could have been as minor as that.
There may have been a trigger in there, but I can't honestly tell you what it was.
All right.
But regardless of what the trigger was, where my mind went was, like, right now I'm in the process of trying to start a new business as a cleaning service, where I've hired an employee, and we're going to try to build up her schedule so she can be doing cleaning. And apparently the time of year we picked to launch this was the worst possible time of year, because we're not at spring cleaning time yet. So people aren't really interested. So even though I've been putting all this marketing out, we're getting like 0 phone calls. And I was saying, well, that's no good. Obviously that's not working out the way I had intended it to. And then my mind started to ramp up, like, well, this is going to completely fall apart. I just wasted all this. I started going down that kind of a road. Yeah. And
so there was
even though I understand how this stuff works, even though I knew where I was going with it, I couldn't stop it.
Right.
So literally what I had to do was just say to myself, okay, I'm giving myself Saturday off. I'm going to start Sunday feeling better. Today is just not going to happen.
Okay,
I get it. I just quit for the rest of Saturday, and then I woke up Sunday and started again.
I think there was a triggering event.
Probably.
Like, I just started this business, and Maybe it wasn't the right time. I've just put in all my money. My wife thinks I'm crazy. I don't know. We could go down a lot of different rabbit holes there. And I think it's brilliant to sometimes say it's okay.
Oh
But
yeah.
don't let yourself go all the way down. Like, my life has been worthless. I can't get out of bed. Stick with
It's
the
the difference
business or
between
whatever.
allowing yourself to feel that way and choosing to live that way.
True that. Well, how are you married? Well,
I'm divorced. I am 2 years divorced.
all right. Do you have a partner?
Not at the moment, no.
Oh, you should use your law. You should listen to this show called Law of Attraction. Help you get- Just kidding. It's a very difficult world out there. I do, and that's one thing sometimes that can send me into a little bit of a spiral. Like, what? I'm pretty together. I'm financially well off. I'm a great athlete. I'm relatively put together here. What? Why can't I find anyone to hang out with? I don't understand it sometimes. And it's not
Gosh.
meant to be for the moment, which is fine. I love my life, so I'm very comfortable with it, and so I'm like, okay, well, there's Mr. Right is not coming down this path recently, or maybe ever again. So I'm going to call in the one, which is me, fall in love with myself.
Always a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's challenging, and those kind of things can trigger feelings of like, why doesn't somebody like me? Where is
Sure.
my forth? That I find that probably in finance, like, I can't make this deal work, and in romance, those are the two places where, or sometimes body image as well.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
Feeling, like, there's a lot of women and men out there that are heavier than they would like to be. They can't seem to get to the treadmill. The ice cream calls to them, Jim, come eat me, or whatever it is. But so, like, how we look and how we're received by society, relationship, one-on-one intimate relationships, which, by the way, are really hard, and your financial situation are three places where it's easy to go down,
Oh yeah.
and important to remember that there is a Sunday.
Yes. It's one of the greatest skills is to do exactly that, to remember that there's a Sunday and that it will be better tomorrow, and tomorrow you will be in a better spot to be able to take those steps that you need to take in order to turn things around emotionally.
So did you get your cleaning business straightened away for yourself?
Well, it's an ongoing thing. I honestly, I think it's probably going to take a couple more months, just because it's the wrong time of year. We got to wait for spring to come. But I'm going to keep promoting. I'm going to keep doing my stuff. I'm going to keep working on my own thing, and I'm going to trust. I'm just going to keep trusting.
And I don't actually think it's such a bad time if you look at it from me, Miss Sunshine, because you're laying down the ropes. You're going to see who comes in. If your business started in mid-March and all of a sudden it's blowout and you have 10 clients that are all coming to you, that would also be overwhelming. So you get this experience of practicing, getting to know the woman that you're working with. How are you going to operate this? Like, make sure all the pay situations are in line, whatever those look like. I'm just making this stuff up.
Sure.
So I'm not sure it's such a bad time from my perspective.
Well, it's never a bad time. I mean, even the marketing that I'm doing right now is going to be creating impressions in people's minds who aren't yet ready to buy. So by the time spring cleaning comes around, that's going to, for some of them, that's going to change, which is,
I agree.
It's a really important.
You're doing great.
Yeah. And also the concept of whether or not I am having success now in a large amount overwhelming me, that's certainly something that a lot of people would have to consider. It's not such a big issue for me because I already have a gardening service where I do very much the same thing. So I have an infrastructure in place that most people don't have.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So if I get those 10 to 20 customers, I can handle that easily.
Right.
Yeah. But if you don't have that infrastructure, you're absolutely right. I mean, you're basically, you're doing the old joke about the entrepreneur, and the entrepreneur is the person who jumps out of an airplane with an airplane kit and then built it on the way down. that's the way it feels when you're an entrepreneur starting a business from scratch for the first time.
I mean, listen, I am an entrepreneur. I have a property management business that's quite successful that kind of finances my entrepreneurship. But, I went out really hard trying to, I wrote this book, and then 2 months later, I was like, I want to do a TED Talk. I want to be an executive speaker. I want to be a coach and all these things. And I finally, in the end of 2024, I said, this is not producing what I want. I'm spending way more money than I'm making. I'm not happy with it. Like, I just want to step back. So now I'm working on reading doing an Audible, because I think Audibles are important. And I'm going to put my time and my effort, spending time in my closet to read it soon. And I think I just landed a TED Talk stage, which would be very interesting.
Wow. Congratulations.
So thank you. I'm speaking to youth, but I love that. And we'll see if that stage comes about. But kind of building the bones of my business versus trying to just be something to everyone. Like, that's not being a good. The fact that you've got your huge infrastructure for your garden garden business is tremendous.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah, that gives me an advantage that almost nobody trying to launch this kind of business would have.
Yes.
I mean, that's because I know, and too, and actually Anne Marie knows too. You know what it's like to actually build something like that from scratch.
Yeah, not easy.
It sounds so easy if you haven't done it before, but when you've done it, you realize, oh my God, I practically sweated that stuff out.
So I was on a podcast recently, and the guy that was the host, he said, well, what are your 5 top tips to making your first million? And I laughed at him. I'm like, Harry, I haven't made my first million on my book. I've made about $1,700. I sell books everywhere. So anybody who wants to buy a book, go to A Woman on Top on Amazon and put in my name, Suzanne Leydecker. Well, I think that'll probably be in your show notes somewhere. Yes. And buy a book, please, and give it to your mother or somebody. Read it yourself, but also read it so that, the more books I sell, the more people I can get to. And they're a whopping $18.66. So,
oh boy, that's cheap.
You can do this. But he asked me, like, what are your 5 tips towards building a good business? And I said, well, pick something you like.
Yes.
That's important.
Very important.
Pick something you have skill in, or you can hire somebody to have skill in, or something like that. Scalability. Don't go don't stay down here in the little corner and I'm never going to come out. I'm just hiding until something happens, versus trying to have 100 cleaners do something for you, and it's totally out of scale. Time management, no, that's not one of them. Trust, trusting.
I love that.
That's another thing. Trusting in the process, and listening to your intuition, and really, honestly, it's kind of about not giving up too early. This is not for the faint of heart, building yourself a business.
It's true.
I've learned so much, and it's so rewarding for everyone that's doing it out there. So
God. It almost doesn't even matter whether your business succeeds. You learn no matter what. No matter what.
Yeah. So very, very exciting to try to build a business and see. And I don't even really want to be a coach or a speaker. I will speak, I will coach, but it's not my number one thing. And then somebody's, well, what are they going to do after they read their book? You read your book, like, where are they going to go? So I am trying to produce a website, which is also SuzanneLeydecker.com. And if you want to go there, and, there's all kinds of freebies, things, 11 tips to saying no to invitations that you really don't want to go to. All those text messages. Can I borrow your car for 12 days and I'll just pay you $600? And you're like, it doesn't feel like a hell yeah. So going back to the principle of it doesn't feel like a hell yeah, how do you politely decline invitations, dates? Maybe some hot woman that invites you out, Harry, but you're like, I don't really like her style. There's no law of attraction. And how do you politely say no so that you don't have to feel badly?
And that is a skill. That's a skill that very often kind of gets ignored and skipped over.
Right. Well,
But it's
I'm
an important skill.
giving you some very practical ways of just answering the text message. And then at the end of it, I have you, for all of you newbies to saying no, and people that feel like taken care of, like whatever, this is a better answer for you. I really can't go out on a date with you tonight because, you know, I had to bathe my cat. I don't know, whatever it is.
I bit my cat.
So they don't feel bad. Rather than no, thank you, I don't really want to go. That's the way that the senior no sayers are, you know, like but for me, I was like, oh, I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want to,
yeah.
I want to not show up at that party. Like it would be really fun, but I don't have time. If it's not a hell yeah.
Well,
People,
I
it's
like
a
the hell
no.
yeah thing, because the hell yeah thing for me is another way of saying I don't love that.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. And it doesn't really matter what the issue is.
Yeah.
It's not like you don't necessarily love that person. It could be where they live, or it could be one of many different things where it just, you know, if you drop into your heart before you say yes to anything, and I have one caveat. If somebody invites you to go out to a party and you're on your couch in your pajamas, get out of them, get in your car and go to the party, because we know that on the scale of 1 to 50, where they rank, you know, what are your top things you can do to happiness and longevity? Believe it or not, smoking, drinking, and eating are like 47, 48, and 49. I don't know what 50 is. And at the top is community,
Yes.
friendships, and
Connection. Yeah.
Yes.
so I always tell people, if you're gonna drink and smoke and eat, like do it with other people.
At the very least.
I mean, you know, it's literally so interesting, the data that says, I'm not suggesting that you drink, smoke, and eat. I just gave up all those things. So I know, but they're so low on producing your longevity and your happiness along the way. It's the goal here. I think this is the goal, right? Law of attraction. We want to be happy.
Funny thing is, in order to be happy, you have to be happy now.
True that.
Yeah. That doesn't work if you try to be happy in the future.
No.
That's almost guaranteed to give you not what you want.
Right. Well, I think that James Clear said it pretty well in his Atomic Habits book, that, you know, like it's what you do today that's going to produce the results tomorrow. So if you want to become a runner, go out and buy a pair of running shoes, first off. Secondly, put them next to the door. Next day, maybe you want to put them on.
Exactly.
So that's how your steps that you make today are how you're going to create your tomorrow. And honestly, Harry, Walt, I know your name, and Anne-Marie, that's how I got through the last 5 years of I got to be so wonderfully like inspired and enlightened over the last 5 years by doing what was you know, like in front of me. Like I was like, no, we're not going to take this personally. I mean, I have all kinds of things. I got upset. I thought my daughter didn't like me because I was calling too much, because I just had a new grandbaby, and, you know, I wanted to see him. And I'm like, that's all made up in my head. We don't even know what's going on. She had made some comments. So in my mind, I was like, oh, she doesn't really want me to call. I'm feeling pretty separate. So I'm down here in Orlando, and I was like, why don't you just let it go and see what happens? She called today. She was like, hi,
Yeah.
here he is. And everything was fine. And I was like, I could have made a big deal. That's what I would have done. I would have made a big deal and said, are you upset with me? Is everything okay? And, you know, for me, through drinking in there, drinking is, I'm on a damp schedule now. I didn't give up liquor forever, but very careful about where I choose to drink, because that's when your emotions really go down, people.
Yeah.
Then you really take things personally.
Well, anytime that you got something that you rely upon to basically ease the pain or mask the pain, then that's going to be your go-to, no matter whether it's helping or not. That's what's so interesting about it. You know, we have these so-called addictions, right? And we follow through on that addiction. And it's amazing how often the thing that we do to mask the pain doesn't actually work, but we
No.
do it anyway because we have conditioned ourselves, or we have been conditioned, depending on how you want to look at it. We have been conditioned to believe that if we do that, it's going to feel better, even when it doesn't feel better.
Right.
Mhm.
Well,
That's
I
how we
didn't
end up
even
being
know it
uncomfortable,
wasn't
comfortable
feeling
selves.
better. I just drank a lot of wine.
Yeah.
Right? That's what you were supposed to do at 8 o'clock at night. But I also realized that the one, it was so easy to stop. I just stopped. And
Isn't that
then
interesting?
I just didn't do it anymore. Occasionally
Yeah.
I have, because I was like, oh, this is fun. And that's okay. I'm okay with that. And then I got all afraid. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna be drinking again. And I just didn't. I love Heineken non-zeros. Ooh,
Yeah.
sorry, there's a plug towards Heineken's. And all these companies are right now recently coming out with non-alcoholic beers because
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
people are choosing to live
Yeah.
more currently into their lives and really honestly take better care of themselves and personal responsibility, and probably their law of attraction is going to increase.
Well, sure.
Vibration.
Anytime that we're
Yeah.
taking steps toward our betterment, notice
Yes.
I didn't say somebody else's benefit, or your daughter's betterment, or your husband's betterment, or whatever, toward our own betterment, no matter what those steps are, even if they're incremental, even if it's like a little tiny one, if they're in the betterment direction, you're better off.
Yes.
And you'll only be better off by the amount that you made some step, but you are better off.
Yeah. I love what you guys are doing here. And
Mm.
I love your energy. You're both so like calm, and it's not like you're know-it-alls that are like you're whatever. You're just trying to live into your
I'm like, if I know it,
being of law.
if I'm gonna know it some, I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah. No, it's really, I have such a pleasure to be here, honestly.
We've been loving having you. There's something else I wanted to kind of add in to the mix here, although I'm not sure we really have enough time to explore it, but I'll try throwing it out anyway. You were talking about how important it is to build up your self-love, your self-esteem, and so forth, which I totally agree with. And you also emphasized, by the way, you hit my two favorite points. My two favorite points are building self-love, self-esteem, and building your social connections. I'm saying yes. I love this. So thank you for that. That was good. But I also want to add, kind of draw out of you. You touched on how important that self-love piece is. You touched on how important that social connection piece is. What I want to ask you about is, how do you see them connecting, those two things, those two pieces?
That's an easy one. I can answer that in 2 minutes.
Okay.
I think that the more you practice self-love, and like that goes along with self-worth. The higher your self-worth goes, the more you think that you do good at what you do and give yourself praise for that, the more you're going to love people. Like I got to say, weirdly enough, since I've been really practicing this, and since I had this aha moment all of a sudden when I was 60, it really happened on the end of a water ski dock, longer story than the time has right here. But all of a sudden I was like, something changed. And then I wanted to do it again and again and again. And the reason why I'm not drinking is because I'm like, I don't really want to have a hangover anymore. I don't wake up and feel that good. But strangely enough, I noticed that people are constantly saying to me, and sometimes I have to shake, they're like, oh my God, you're such a loving person. Now that did not come out of their mouths before recently.
Okay.
Not like the last 4 days, but in the last few years, people often say to me, oh, you're so loving. And I'm thinking, are they talking to the guy behind me? Like, I was not particularly, I've been a loving person my whole life, but now I'm so much more like, this is my gift to the universe, is to be loving to myself and to be loving to everyone I come across. That's why I had to apologize to Anne Marie and say, no, I wasn't trying to put you down. I was whatever, because, I want to make sure that she feels love because I'm a caretaker. No, but I also, it's important to me that anytime anything might be misconstrued, that people might understand it incorrectly or not in the way that it was meant to be said, that I need to clean that up. So I think it's really quite a simple thing. The more loving you are, the more people are going to see it and the better off you're going to be.
Yeah, it's reciprocating, isn't it?
It
You
is,
feed
and
one
that's why I
and it
love
feeds
being
the
with
other
you
and feeds the
guys.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, because you guys are kind and loving, and it's a safe space to be in. You know, I've been on some podcasts where people are really, the host is pretty brutal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't crack because I don't crack anymore. I just was like, okay, well, let's explore that. But this has been such a lovely, lovely place to be. So I don't know if I answered your question.
Well, I think you kind of indirectly did. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I think it's such a cool question to explore, and I wish we had more time to explore it because you can do a lot with it. But you kind of got there because you made the final connection, which is that when you work on your self-love, it improves your social connections, and when you improve your social connections, it ends up working on your self-love, and it becomes a self-building machine in a sense.
Yeah.
Wash, rinse, repeat. It just keeps going and going and going and going. And I agree with you. I think that is why those two things work so nicely together because they do feed each other.
Yeah.
It's kind of like there's a meme that's going around these days that I like a lot. It's I don't remember the exact details of how it's put together, but the gist of it is this: that there are two kinds of wolves that can be in your life. One kind of wolf is the kind that helps you and serves you. The other kind of wolf is the kind that constantly is tearing you apart for meat. And the question that gets posed is, well, which kind of wolf is going to come into your life? And the answer is whichever one you feed. Which wolf are you going to feed? That's the one that's going to come into your life.
I'm going to feed the loving one.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. That's a hell yeah from me.
But the first thing you have to do is recognize that that's actually a choice.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a big deal. You know, stop being the victim and start saying, yeah, I can take control of my life.
Right. You know, it's once you, it's not like my life is fixed and I'm sitting on the right hand of God, the Father Almighty. But once you make the move to make some kind of change in your life and you see a positive outcome from it, I don't care what it is, do something differently, then it gets easier because you're like, oh, well, that one felt good.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'll do that again. I ran this mastermind dinner the other night and it was like, is giving sometimes selfish? I think giving is always selfish, honestly, because you're doing something because it brings you joy.
That's right.
I want to be loving because it brings me joy.
Yes.
Occasionally I run into people who are like, you're such a bitch. And I was like, okay, thank you. And I try to laugh and maybe I go home and I feel a little sad about that. I could, you know, I can have my moments. It's okay. I try not to do it right in front of them anymore because I used to, I'm a terrible person. I can't do it. Go on and on. That did not do much for my self-worth.
No.
So, you know, I'm all about just, attracting the loving wolf. And you know what? If the wolf that's eating you is coming at you, give him love too.
Ooh, I like that.
Definitely.
Yeah. Because maybe they're there to teach you something.
Yeah.
You know? So, I mean, that wolf's hungry.
Exactly. And that's what I was thinking when you were saying about that whole, you know, or somebody says you're a bitch. Well, you know, they might have 50 years of trauma behind them that all triggers and they're not dealing with it. So that's not your fault. And that's that whole don't take it personally bit is you're not going to please everybody.
You're just not. I mean, everyone's got their own, but I think it gets easier, Anne-Marie, like the more, I'm not trying to please anyone. I'm just trying to do what I think can be helpful for the planet. Like I don't make any money at this business. I just do it because I want to bring light and love into women's lives, especially if they're, you know, wealthy women that are having a problem with their self-worth and self-esteem and they don't get, like, why are they not making any forward movement? Get a hold of me. Join the tribe. I'm not going to take your money. I'm not going to do anything. I just want to create a tribe of women in particular, although there's several men in my tribe, who want to live their best lives, just like what you're trying to do for your podcast guests here. I mean, your the people at your audience.
The listeners, yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, tying into what you said a moment ago, the main reason I do this podcast is for me.
Right.
I'm thrilled that I have listeners.
Yeah.
But it was the last thing I expected.
That is so great. I love that.
I mean, literally, when I started this, Suzanne, I started because I was in the depths of despair and I didn't know what to do. I was financially just destroyed by the 2008 financial crisis. My business got wiped out and I couldn't climb out. No matter what I did, it wasn't working. So by 2012, I was desperate. I started the podcast in order to get some help because I couldn't afford to hire a coach. I like to tell the story. I couldn't even afford to buy a self-help book. The only thing I could do was start a podcast because it was the only thing I could afford.
I think it's more expensive than.
It is now. At the time, it was actually less expensive, but you're right. It's currently more expensive, but it worked out.
That is such a great story.
Isn't it?
Yeah, you should really write a tagline on that or something because it's so powerful that you made one like complete right-hand turn. You didn't, you're going down your road, nothing's going very well, it keeps going on, you don't know how to get off, whatever. And then all of a sudden you're like, I'm going to take a right-hand turn. I'm going to do a podcast because maybe this is going to help me. And kabam.
Yeah.
And
the reason I'm bringing that up is I actually, like you, I thought about doing coaching and I kind of came to the conclusion, I don't really want to be a coach. I like doing the podcast. I like hosting. I like talking to people like you. I like my co-hosts, Anne Marie and Joel and Jody Lynn. I love all that aspect of it. I didn't really want to turn it into a business.
Yeah.
That actually would have kind of ruined it.
Yeah.
So I just stayed with, I'm just going to do it because I love it. And what happens is, even though I wasn't directly creating a business out of it, even though I wasn't directly getting monetary compensation out of it, what I was learning, what I was developing into was making that kind of thing happen in other ways separate from the podcast.
Yeah. Oh, I see it.
Yeah,
for sure. I mean, you just mentioned it and I was like, oh, you made this right turn and it helped him in all these other places of life, which seemingly are unconnected.
And they're all connected.
But they're not.
So connected.
Absolutely true.
Listeners out there, this is a brilliant thing right here that he's done. is that, and I'm sure you had to be guided by some kind of intuitive trust, like I'm just going to go do this thing that I don't necessarily know how to do. I don't know what your skill in podcasting was.
I have an IT background, so I figured that was why I could do it. It was the one thing I could do.
See, go back to my 5 things. You're good at it.
Yeah.
That's important.
Yep.
You listen to your intuition. You're like, well, maybe I should just go this way. And then scalability. Well, it sounds like you did that too. You scaled small. It's gotten bigger over time. That's a comfortable thing. It's helped you in other places of your life where you've been able to make money. Just do what Walt does and your life will be fine.
I love it. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Suzanne, there are a couple things that we like to do with every program that I want to do with you as well. First thing I want to do is I want to go to Anne Marie because first of all, she's terrific. Second of all, she has a really great perspective on all these conversations. And she always has this really fine-tuned way of tying it all together that's just exactly right. And I know she's been thinking about it, and I have a feeling this one's actually pretty easy for her, but I'm really curious to see what she's going to say. So Anne Marie, you've been thinking about this. What's your tie together for today?
I have. If you see me, been taking little notes. I love the 3 pillars because I think for me, accountability, that personal responsibility is just crucial. And it's something I'm trying to teach my children because, that's our power. Don't take it all personally. Again, as we covered a minute ago, you can't control other people's emotions. That's just out of your control,
No.
Just try and be best. If you feel you need to apologize. But, if you haven't intended to do it. But I do love the say no. Saying no as if it's not a hell yeah. I mean, I'm certainly using that one going forward. But I think the overall thing that I've taken from it is the whole self-worth. It's not about money. It's not about what other people have got and what you're striving to get. It's get to know yourself. What is your self-worth? What are your values? What do you enjoy? Get to know yourself. Get a piece of paper, write it down. Because I think we don't always know that about ourselves because we rush through life. So just taking some time to digest it, and that self-worth will take you forward.
Yeah. And you know what, just to comment on that, if we're here talking about the law of attraction, what I believe to be true, because I know it happened for myself, is as I inherited some money, my self-worth was way down in the toilet. As soon as my self-worth began to grow, my net worth went up, tripled. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not that I didn't work for it. I did. I
Sure.
just made better decisions. I went into business with people that were more trustworthy. I did things, and it was mind blowing. So I think it's important to allow people to understand that if you work on your self-worth, it will spill over into these other areas of your life that you want to, whether it's your looks and how you feel about yourself, your money, finding relationships, many other things that I'm sure those are probably the top 3 in my mind, but it will change.
It does.
Definitely.
So I love your little wheels turning there.
Thank you. Thank you. It was good information to digest.
And you know what, I would encourage you and everybody listening, you know what, when the first time I heard this, which it was announced by some other people do use it, and this was a term that I did not make up, but this woman said, are you willing to do this for 7 days? Oh my God, I didn't even get off the phone with her, and I already had 2 big things with intimate people in my life that were asking me for something, and I was like, that doesn't feel like a hell yeah. So I wrote the text message, and then I deleted, and I wrote another one, and then I deleted. Why did I do all those things? Because I didn't want these people not to like me. I was selfish. I was a bitch. I had more than they do. I should go ahead and loan it to them. I wasn't using it. All these things were, and I knew that if I loaned this man my car, and we'll go into the details, that it was not going to feel like a hell yeah. Not at all. So I crafted my 100th text message saying, I'm sorry, but it doesn't feel right. And
Good
I
for
let
you.
it go with that. So now we're trying to get into writing one text message, and that no is a complete sentence.
And I think it's a good, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it's a really, for those people who don't understand about like trusting your intuition or feeling your intuition, that's a really good way to start doing it, isn't it?
Oh, I mean, seriously, 2 of them, major ones, within an hour. I was like, oh, how many other places are there? I mean, God was just like, here you go, try these 2. Oh, I was miserable. And now, as I said on my website, I have a free download for, 11 ways, because I love the number 11, because it's related to angels. 11 ways to say no, to commonly ask, would you like to go to an event tonight? No, I really don't feel like it. Or would you like to go on a date with someone, and you're like, you were flirting with him last night, and then you're like, yeah, he's not really for me.
Yeah.
You need to gracefully get out of it without, you don't want to make anybody feel bad, but also don't go if you don't want to.
Yes,
Won't
exactly.
come out
Even
well.
worse, that's leading people on, and it's not being authentic. But once you start doing it, how empowering is it once you start?
Oh, it's changed my life. It's the one thing, because I've run some workshops for women in Uganda in the workplace. And my hardest thing back then, I talked about purpose and passion, self-care, and setting boundaries. And setting boundaries was the one that eluded me. I didn't know how to do it myself. So how was I able to teach anybody to do it? I didn't know. Now I'm very clear. Say no if it's not a hell yeah. And you would be surprised how many people have picked up on this. I say it all the time. And I'm like, people repeat it to me back when they see me the next time. I said, hell no, because it wasn't a hell yeah.
Wow, what a nice piece of
Good
feedback.
for you.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, that's been a game changer. And I mean, all 3 of them for me, it's not all my fault. For me, personal responsibility was taking too much,
Mm-hmm.
saying no, and not taking things personally. And it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. I just shared with you, it happened to me the other day.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, now what am I going to do with this? Am I going to sit here and wallow and worry about it? Or am I just going to wait till she phones me and everything's going to be fine? And that's exactly what happened. I'm like, phew, another one. I didn't have to melt down into a puddle, look like an idiot, or
Right.
do all those things I used to do. I wasn't happy.
Good
You
for
remember
you.
this? I think this thing is about how to be happy.
That's right.
Yeah.
You're
Daily.
happy if you say no and you don't take things personally and you take personal responsibility. Those things will make you happy.
They do. They do. No doubt about it. Yeah, absolutely true. I was realizing, I said there was a second thing. There's actually two more things that we have to do before we're done. Because I realized we never actually asked you. I mean, you kind of volunteered it halfway through, but we got to kind of formally ask you right now. For somebody who wants to reach you, how do they find you?
Well, I have a website, which is just being updated right now as we speak. It's Suzanne Leydecker. So it's my first name, Suzanne. And then my last name with no space, LYDECKER.com. And you can go there and sign up for all kinds of freebies. You can buy my book from there, or you can go directly to Amazon. I prefer that you reach out to me by email so then we have some connection to each other and you can be part of the tribe. But if you want to go straight to Amazon, you can look up A Woman on Top with my name, Suzanne Leydecker, and it'll come up right there. And if you would be willing to friend me on Instagram, I am trying to go from 1,034 followers to 100,000.
All right.
I want to create a tribe of 1,000 women. 1,000 women who want to be really involved in a real intense way of creating a tribe that's moving us together in a loving way. But I also want to reach 100,000 people, and I want to see if I can do it just by asking people, do you think you could go on Instagram and friend me? No skin off your teeth. You're not getting emails. You'll just boost that number up. Yeah, I've made I've 50 new connections on my own, just asking people.
Beautiful.
So, Anne-Marie, if you could, before you go to bed tonight in London, just friend me on Instagram, that would be great.
I don't do social media, I'm afraid. If you're on YouTube, I do that, but that's about it.
I haven't gotten to YouTube. What about you, Walt? No social media?
I basically am the same. I stay away from social media. I used to do all kinds of social media, and I just decide it's not for me anymore. So I just don't even do it. But I mean, I'm happy to friend you there. I just don't really participate in social media at all.
I don't know how I feel about it. I'm not very good at it. I had a social media person that found out she was stealing from me, so she's gone. Yeah, not so nice. I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't, you said it before, what you're doing now influences what you do later.
Yeah.
What I was doing then in that now was not paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
So what I got was a disgruntled employee who I was like,
It
how can you be working on this loving book called A Woman on Top and be stealing at the same time? Not exactly sure how that goes, but we parted ways amicably, or somewhat.
It was another learning experience. That's really
I learned a lot. So
Yeah.
I do social media, and I enjoy getting my message out there. I'm not very good at it, but I just post my
You're
thing.
getting better and better all the time. You
all,
really
the, all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I kind of enjoy just sitting there and going, hey, this is what I'm thinking about this morning.
Yes.
Well, I said there was one more thing. Now, based on what you said, I want to make it two more things. This is like the show that keeps stretching out.
Yes.
But you were talking earlier about your book sales and how you're trying to grow the Instagram account and so forth, which is all really great. I want to share with you something that was shared with me by a guest who appeared on the show a few times a couple of years ago. His name is Andrew Kaplan. He writes under the name Andrew Cap, and he wrote a book called The Last Law of Attraction Book You'll Ever Need to Read. And what's really distinctive about that is he has managed over the years to sell 150,000 copies of his book. And I asked him when he reached 100,000, how did you do it? And his answer, I thought, was both simple and profound at the same time, because his answer was, every day I do something in service of the book. I answer at least one email or post something on social media, or at that time you were, when he said all this, you were still able to respond to somebody who posted a review on Amazon. So he'd go to respond to a review on Amazon. I would always do one thing, at least one thing every day in service of the book. And I did it every single day for the last X number of years. I'm not sure how many years it was. And
That's great.
In doing that, he sold at that point 100,000 books. And I just heard he's now up to 150,000, just doing that exact same thing over and over and over again. So
I mean, really, honestly, that's what I do. Is I spend a little bit more than one thing per day. I spend most.
Well, one is the minimum. One is the minimum. That's the idea.
But I actually really enjoy it because I know I wrote a really good book, and I get messages from people. I sell books on gondolas, on street corners, in stores.
Good for you.
Wherever you can find me, I'm like, you should buy a book.
Yeah.
And then people write me back. And I barely, like, this woman wrote me the other day. I met her somewhere and I don't remember exactly what she looks like, but she was like, oh my God, I bought your book. This is so good. And because it speaks to people's hearts, pulls on their heartstrings. So I encourage everyone to read it. And I'm going to just keep doing what Andrew Capp said.
There you go. All right. So that leads me to my final thing to talk about before we're wrapping up for the day, which is something I started a couple of years ago because I noticed there's a gap. You mentioned social media. Social media is kind of like one piece of that larger puzzle called the 21st century and how to market in it.
Yeah.
And so everybody has learned how to be a brand and how to do a lot of outreach, and you do podcasts and you write articles and you go post on social media and you're putting all this free stuff and so forth, and which is great. But the thing that I noticed is we don't get a lot of credit for that stuff.
No.
There's something we can do about that. So Suzanne, on behalf of those people you've never met, never seen, never will meet, never will see, who you've been influencing in ways that you don't even know about, on their behalf, thank you for what you're doing.
Oh,
because you're making a difference in this world.
Thank you. I really, and every once in a while, like I got a message from somebody who I haven't seen in 5 years. And he was like, wow, I read your post. It was like, the post was like 4 months before he wrote me. And he's like, I just want to let you know that, like, it really made an impact on my life.
Nice.
Whoa. So I so appreciate that, because I take that from the universe. You're channeling that from the universe to say, and that's why I keep doing it, because, I run my property management business and I'm quite successful at it. And if I make some money at this thing and I could sell 150,000 books, that would be amazing. I'm all about asking the universe for that, because one, it'll get the message out there, and two, it makes me enough money to keep doing this.
Yeah.
On a larger, like, the more I have, the more I can really influence and, like, do good things for a lot of women are feeling very lonely.
Yeah.
And I think I have a lot of men ask me, why are you writing a book for women? And I was like, because it's going to make your life a lot easier.
That's true. That's actually true.
Honestly, and mostly we're mad because of, you people there, Walt. But that's only what we think we're mad at. We're really just trying to make our way through a new challenging time on the planet where women are showing up differently, and we really don't know what we're doing quite yet. Some people think they do, but most of us are kind of struggling with, how do we really fit in here? So.
Well, you certainly helped us along that line today. Thank you for sharing the message.
Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure to be with you guys, as I said before.
And Anne-Marie, as usual, wonderful stuff coming your way.
Yes, thank you very much for your wonderful questions.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. It's been a beautiful listen.
Thank you.
That's one. By the way, that's how she started. She was a listener of the podcast.
Yeah.
And she became co-host. Yeah. So good stuff. Anyway, thank you very much. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. And we will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you.